Welcome to our Adobe Illustrator Town Hall meeting. We're so glad you were able to join us tonight. We've got three wonderful illustrators with us tonight. The fourth illustrator, Bob Ostrom, had to teach a class tonight on the ground, and so we did a video interview with him earlier this morning, and I've placed that link in the description box to the right of the streaming video. And when you want to, you can click on that YouTube link. It's an unlisted YouTube page, and watch our video interview with Bob Ostrom on Illustrator. He was lots of fun, and guys, he felt really bad that he couldn't be here for the live event because Janie, Russ, Wendy, he really wanted to meet you guys. He's been knowing about you online for the longest time, and he said it was a real bummer that he didn't get to interact with you. But we have got Janie Ho with us. Janie, I put you on the web. There you go. We're gonna be seeing some of Janie's work and talking to her about her experience with Adobe Illustrator software. We've got Russ Cox.
Hey guys.
And Russ is going to play the banjo for us, and when things get slow. He was playing it for us in the green room earlier.
And Janie's going to sing. So.
What's that?
Janie said she was going to sing along. So.
Oh, right. And you're going to take your hat off, and we're supposed to throw money in the hat. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I'm going to do some busking on the cat tonight.
I guess it's a virtual hat. It'll have to be virtual money.
It'll be virtual money. Bitcoins. We'll accept Bitcoins. And there's Wendy Martin.
Hi, everybody.
And Wendy has talked with our group many times before. We're always glad to have her on. And Janie and Russ, we're so glad to have you talking to our group tonight as well. Let's start with Janie. Janie's worked as a graphic designer in-house with Nickelodeon, Scholastic, and also Time Magazine for Kids, where she was an art director after graduating from Parsons, the New School of Design in New York. And in 2006, she left to pursue illustrating full-time and hasn't stopped drawing since, she says. She calls her design company Chicken Girl. She specializes in the children's market, with her work appearing in both trade and educational books, magazines, toys, crafts, and digital media. Janie's clients have included HarperCollins, Little Brown and Company, Viking, Sterling, Scholastic, Toys R Us, Penguin, American Greetings, Cartwheel Books, Nosy Crow, Walter Foster Books, and many, many more. And she is currently in Boston, Massachusetts. And her website is chickengirldesign.blogspot.com, and these links are all in the box, the description box to the right. And, hey, Janie. Thanks for being here tonight. We got Russ Cox, who has illustrated children's books for Scholastic, Penguin Random House, Sky Pony Press, Macmillan, Time Inc., Capstone, Harcourt, Highlights, Humpty Dumpty, and Disney magazines, and for well-known corporate and media clients such as Warner Brothers, Arts and Entertainment Network, Hershey's, McDonald's, Kaboom, Kellogg's, and American Greetings. He's taught classes at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design in his most recent children's picture book, which he wrote and illustrated. It just came out a few months ago, is Faraway Friends. Is that right, Russ? Was it just a few months ago?
It came out in May.
Okay, that's a few months ago. Great. Bob Ostrom, who is in the video, archived in the video that I will be combining with tonight's presentation. He's illustrated more than 250 children's books by nearly all of the major trade publishers and the best-known children's media markets such as the Disney Channel, the Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon. Last but not least, Wendy, after earning degrees from the Fashion Institute of Technology and the School of Visual Arts, began her career in advertising and graphic design in New York, creating spot art for Fortune 500 companies including Kraft, General Electric, and Sears. After her move to Missouri in 2000, she turned her focus to her true love, children's books. Her most recent picture book, just out from Arte Publico Press, is The Story Circle by the well-known author Diane Bertrand Gonzalez. Wendy's Adobe Illustrator process is featured in the December 15 issue of Imagine FX magazine. She's taught on-the-ground classes in watercolor, and she's also the creator of the online video course Vector Your Kids Book Art, Adobe Illustrator for Children's Book Illustrators. Okay, guys, great. Janie, would you like to go first and talk about your new book coming out and your process with Illustrator? Can we put you on the front line?
Sure. Well, I guess I should talk about how long I've been working in Illustrator. I think I first got introduced to Illustrator really probably in 2000, which is a long time ago, I guess. I think when I first learned about the program, I was thinking, wow, this is it. If I can really learn this well, I think this will suit me and my style and the way that I want my art to look. So, yeah, I finally learned it. I was working at a fashion company where I was told that I needed to learn, Illustrator, and I didn't know it. And I got the job, but I learned it really quickly. So I guess that was like a boot camp in itself when you have to learn it at your job. But I'm just going to talk about 2 books that I have, and it's all done in Illustrator. It's basically 99% Illustrator, or these 2 Violet Rose books that are out already, basically. They're kind of like sticker activities with crafts. They're very girly, but boys can do it too. So they were all done in Illustrator. See very well.
Violet Rose, we can see it. And we're going to put links up to it as well.
Great, thank you. So should I share my screen so I can show my Illustrator files?
That would be great, Janie, yeah. Now, this is an interactive meeting, so if you're watching and you have questions for Janie or any of our town hall meeting panelists, please just text it in. I'm going to moderate the questions as best I can. We hope to get to all of them tonight. We're seeing it, Janie. You're on. You're up.
Great.
Yeah.
So this is one of the spreads that are from Violet Rose and The Surprise Party, which is the first book, and it's all done in Illustrator, and I love it because in books like these, there's a lot of changes. This book project was kind of started from scratch, so we didn't even know what the book size was going to be. So there was a lot of changes, and it was easy. So I'm going to put this in preview mode, which shows you all the vector, I guess all the vector lines that I've drawn for this whole spread here, which it might look a little bit complicated, but this makes total sense to me. It makes sense to you. But I use the pen tool, basically, which is this tool here, for everything, because I love having a really nice sense of control. I know a lot of people use a lot of like the square tool, the blob tool, but my tool of choice, probably 95% of the time, I'm using the pen tool. And I basically hand draw everything to give it that hand-drawn look. I'm not really looking for a very slick look. See, even circles like this, you can see is very organic. I also love the fact that I have things in layers, but actually every individual piece of thing here in the back, I can group them and I can move them around. Little groceries here, they're all just one piece. I can group them, I can move them around. It's kind of like a puzzle, like pieces of shaped puzzles that I can move around. And it's a different way of working, but I love it.
Janie, you've got a couple questions already coming in. Carrie's wants to know what kind of tablet were you using, or are you using a Cintiq? And Annie is asking, do you hand draw using a tablet?
I use a very, very old Wacom pen stylus. I don't use a Cintiq, but I do use. I definitely recommend a Wacom tablet, a pen, the stylus that you can use. I used to hand draw everything and hand draw, by pencil and scan it in, and then redraw on top of that with my stylus and Wacom pen. But now that client work is, they want it faster and faster now, I just kind of go straight on the computer. So
Wow.
a sketch of this would be a grayscale of drawing the same things but in grayscale. So I hope that answers.
If you guys want more clarification, just keep dialoguing with us, and we'll let Janie go on with her presentation. But don't hesitate to interrupt us with questions.
Yes, but I also use there are textures going on here, and that's something I bring outside of Illustrator. I would bring textures in from Photoshop, like a TIFF file or bitmap file, but ultimately I bring those files into Illustrator and not exporting it into Photoshop. A lot of the clients, that I work for, I usually give them a PSD file, a Photoshop file in the end, because I feel like this is like my working file. And in the past, I have had people kind of like mess with it a little bit when it gets a little bit complicated, but this is, this is it. This is the actual file that's I'm working from. Here's another file from Violet Rose.
That was such a fantastic image you just had up, and this one too, of course, Janie. But
and this one has a lot of little details too. But I'm going to do it in preview mode so you can see all the little outlines.
Okay.
That I've done. So as you can see, I'm drawing every little pieces. They're just basically shapes kind of coming together. Let me just move that back. It's a little slow.
No, but it's looking great on the screen, though.
But as you can see, as it loads, you can see the little different layers I have drawn for everything.
Janie, Pascal is asking, how long does it take you to do a scene like these last couple you've shown us?
Oh, well, especially this one is really complicated because it's like a whole market. But I don't know, a couple days maybe, a day or two at least. Because there's a lot of, I save a lot of time by really just working out the sketch in grayscale form as a vector file. So if the art director says you want to change this orange, to somewhere else, or this little pig needs to go over here, I can quickly just grab this guy and bring him over here very easily. I can shrink him up and down. If I want to bring this pig over, to a bigger scene, I can just enlarge her very quickly, and unlike Photoshop, it will be, the pixels and all that, the resolution will be lost, but I have no issues with scaling things up and down at all.
Yes. Carrie's asking, do you use CMYK? What version of Illustrator? She has a bunch of questions in here. Do you work exclusively now in Illustrator or vary programs and techniques? And then she apologizes for all the questions.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm in CS5. I actually have to look to see what I am, but I'm perfectly fine in CS5. I haven't really thought about upgrading. It's working for me, so this is where I'm at.
Okay.
I'm sure there's like other special things in the other versions, but I'm happy with CS5 right now. So.
Jomike is saying, "Ooh, so awesome!" with exclamation point and happy face. And Annie, I think we've already answered your question about bringing textures into Illustrator. Or well, she's asking further, does it make the file too heavy when you're bringing textures into Illustrator?
It does. It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, but I would assume that it would be less heavier than a Photoshop file. Like if you're working in the same thing in a Photoshop file. So I think that, for example, like here I have so many different patterns on this spread. But I'm sure that if I'm doing this in Photoshop, this file would be a lot bigger.
Mm.
And I just wanted to show this spread because in this project there's a lot of patterns that I have to do. And all of these, if I go into outline mode, you can see all the little different pieces that make up this file.
Wow.
And there's different techniques that I'm sure there's people who are honest to God surface designers really know how to use Illustrator well with the patterns, and you can make different patterns very easily. I'm kind of fudging it a little bit here, but for example, like this this heart here, just something simple like this. as you can see, you don't see the little circle because I've used this as a swatch. For example, like here, I hope everybody can see. So I'm just using, it's just a swatch, and this is something that I made. So when you go into outline mode, there's no little circles here because it's Illustrator's recognizing it as a pattern already that I made.
Russ or Wendy, if you guys have questions for Janie or comments, please chime in. Don't be shy. This is a conversation, remember. They look like little patches of cloth, the way you've got the
They really do. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're just gorgeous.
So is this like a sticker book?
It is. So it's a sticker book. It's a craft book. Like this is for a garland, so the kids can punch out these little pieces and string them along. So it's crafty. It's got stickers. It's got paper, paper crafts. So a lot of patterns, but then there's a story involved. So there's a lot of components in this, and Illustrator served me well with all the patterns and the different, all the little different things, because I just really feel like the file in Illustrator is a lot lighter than if I used Photoshop, but I'm also a little biased, so.
So when you say lighter, you just mean it's just not requiring as much information.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's a formula. It's not a pixel.
Yes, yes.
What was it about Illustrator that you found so comforting when you first came on it? You recognized it. Is it because of your love of patterns, layers, and the line, or what do you think it was that drew you particularly to this program, Janie?
I think it was because for me, I always loved kids' illustrations, and at that time, around 2000. The people that were using Illustrator did these very, cute characters with them, and very clean and cute and clean colors, and I was really drawn to that. So that was initially why I was drawn to it. But now I kind of use it in a way where I'm trying to, draw. When I draw circles, I don't draw it very, cleanly. I try to do it more handmade feel. But I still love the way that it's giving me, the colors, the flat colors, and I can control how much texture I have. But I think initially it was like that very clean line and fun colors and flat colors that I can use. But now people can use it so many different ways that you can never tell, what it is,
Yeah, great.
But,
well, Jay Palant is asking, are you making each double-page spread the same proportion? Each double-page spread the same proportion.
Same proportion? Here, yes, for this particular book.
But you'll change it up when you need to.
Yes, I mean initially when we first started on this project, they didn't have a project that was like this before because there are so many components, and so I had to change the art a few times to fit in a different proportion, and that was easy to do. For me, really easy.
So what's the size at the end?
I'm sorry?
What's the final size of the spread?
This is probably a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 11, but the problem was it's kind of thick, and there was some leeway in the middle of the gutter where it needed some adjustments. So that is why we had to change it a few times to make it work.
It's gorgeous.
But I'm just going to show one more piece of art from a different book, just to show. This is from Zoom Zoom. Point and match. So I also do a lot of board books. So this is kind of like the type of artwork that can be done with Illustrator. I'm just going to show a little bit of the outline form. So yeah, that's. I don't want to take up all of the time.
Janie, I thought you painted with gouache for the longest time.
Oh, funny you say that. I was doing gouache when I was in art school. That was my medium of choice was gouache. I guess it simulated gouache a little bit for me.
I thought it was gouache for the longest time. Then I talked to you, and you're like, no, I work in Illustrator. It's like, are you kidding me?
I tricked you.
That's very intuitive, Russ. That's very intuitive. You saw.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. It was, yeah, I used to paint in gouache, and I guess Illustrator really mimicked that idea of gouache.
Flatness.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Did you hold your book up? I missed it. I was looking at the comments in the screen. Did you? There it is again. Okay.
I will show the part that I.
Okay, and we'll put a little JPEG of it up too on the page so they can see it later. Is it out now?
It is out. You can go to worldofvioletrose.com and you can learn about these books. So.
Great, you got a book page up for it already. The World of Violet Rose. Thank you so much, Janie. And if you guys think of more questions for her, you know, put them up here. This is your opportunity to talk to a wonderful, renowned illustrator. All right, we got Russ up now. Russ, are you ready? Have you got your banjo ready?
I can't follow that.
Well,
That's just,
it'd be hard for anyone to follow that.
right, yeah, that was
I'm
great.
gonna have to follow you, Russ.
Yeah, when is it the end of the line? She's really got to knock it out of the park. Well, you can play the banjo, and nobody else can do that. Russ.
Well, maybe I should play the banjo as background.
I think so. There you go.
So, so where do I begin?
Well, why don't you tell us how you got started with Adobe Illustrator and how you learned it, and then while you can be saying that while you're multitasking, trying to pull up your screen share and show your files, anything you wanted to show us if you have some pictures for us.
Okay, well, I'm really going to age myself now. I started with Illustrator 88.
Wow, a pioneer.
Yeah, I work at a design studio, and we actually had the first Macs in the area, so we would go in at night with a 6-pack of beer, and which is what designers and illustrators and all that do, and we'd work on the software and learn it. So I really fell in love with Illustrator because you could draw on it and just do so much. And that was almost 30 years ago.
You've been using it for a long time.
Yeah. I don't use it as much anymore. I kind of moved away from that look. I do a more of a traditional look, and I start painting in Photoshop and Manga Studio now.
A lot of illustrators have discovered Manga Studio, and they really like it.
It's great. It's so fast, but I guess that's another workshop.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one. Yeah, that'd be a fun one.
So
maybe you can teach the course in Manga Studio.
I got a lot more to learn because it's pretty complicated, but it's a lot faster than Photoshop.
Okay, great.
But anyway, what I'll do is I'll bring up some samples of.
Okay.
And let's see if I can do this desktop. And I guess we need the Jeopardy theme because it's a little slow.
Okay.
All right.
We're seeing your screen. We're seeing Janie on your screen. Oh my goodness, there he is. The Trojan horse.
So can you see the robot and girl?
Yes, sure can.
Okay, this is a piece I did a few years ago. I did it for SCBWI. What I like to do is I start with a traditional sketch, and I see if I can turn that on. So that was a sketch I did, and what I do is I scan that in, I bring that into Illustrator, and I use that as my base layer, and then I start building my files on top of it. So let me turn that off. So usually I have 40 to 60 layers for an illustration like this, and
40 to 60 layers.
Yeah, I do that for several reasons. For me, it's easy to make changes, and also if a client wants to go in and make changes, it really confuses them, so they usually don't touch my files. But as you see here, I kind of condense things just to save on memory. I think this is probably only about 15 layers, but the original file was 40 to 60 layers.
It looks like 4K high def. It's amazing. Wow.
Thanks. I use a Cintiq. I draw on a Cintiq. I use the pen tool a lot. And with this one, you can see I use a lot. I didn't use really a lot of outlines. I just drew shapes, and I filled them in. And there's a feature Let's see if I can find it. I haven't worked in this in a little bit. It's the draw normal, draw behind, and draw inside. Can you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
the bottom
I like
of your toolbar there.
Instead of masking things, I like to draw inside. Again, it's a lot faster. That way you don't have to hit Command 7 or go up and use your masking tool. And the other thing I like to do is I like to bring in textures. You can see that the robot really has like a metal texture I put on him.
Yeah, yeah, with the highlights.
Yeah. And I'll do what Janie did, and I'll see. Go up to View and Outline. You can just see.
Wow.
Thank
Every
you.
flower petal had to be done.
Love it.
Well, what I did is I drew the flower like 10 times, and then I modified each one. So that way I rotated things and turned them so that way they don't look all the same. And if they started looking similar, then I just I grab an edge of a petal and move it a little bit or pull it.
I love the shadow effect you put in there. It's just so convincing.
Oh, this
Gives real depth. Yeah, under the robot.
yeah, that's just put on a layer, and I use a lot of transparency and multiply, so you can see the image underneath. Let's see. Here's a book I did a couple years ago, all in Illustrator. This is the center spread, Major Manners' Night Night Soldier. And this is the tub scene. And I didn't want to use a lot of outlines. I kind of like the shapes, almost like what Janie does. She uses a lot of shapes, not a lot of outlines. And let's see.
It's so much fun. It looks like it looks so fresh and spontaneous, and yet we know it wasn't done that way.
The robot and girl piece was probably 3 days of work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably 24 to 30 hours, and this was probably about the same.
Okay, it would have taken you that long to do a painting, or maybe longer with traditional medium. Is that right?
And actually, I work faster with traditional media.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't get hung up on things. I kind of get real detail oriented when I start working in Illustrator.
Because you can be.
Oh, because then you start tweaking things. You can move things and really finesse things. That's the beauty with this software.
Questions are coming in. Oh, go ahead, Wendy. I'm sorry.
I was like, you taught me something, Russ, because I'm still using masks. I'm gonna have to check out that tool. I hope it's in. What version of Illustrator are you in?
I'm just using 5.
So that I have that tool. I'm gonna have to check that tool out.
Yeah.
What tablet do you use, Russ? Carrie's asking.
I use a Cintiq. It's like an 18. It's the very first Cintiq. So it's like 12 years old.
Wow.
But Wendy, yeah, it's in the toolbar here, and it's at the very end, like right above the. See if you click here. Let me see.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, it's right there. And what you have to do, here's the trick to this, is that you have to use your open arrow and select the shape in order to draw inside.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's the key. You have to use this arrow to select.
Yeah, because I'm mask happy.
It'll save you a lot of time.
Yes.
I think that's why I upgraded to CS5 was because of that function. Somebody had told me.
That's why I did it too, because when I saw that, like, oh, sold. Was there any other questions or anything else you want me to talk about? I mean, Janie covered a lot of it.
Well, and Janie's still getting compliments on the page on her beautiful work.
Everyone.
And you are too, Russ. Annie's saying it always takes longer to draw digitally than to draw traditionally. So if one painting takes 40 hours, how would you charge for it? Hourly. Hourly, usually 40 hours is what people work for 1 week.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, sometimes you have a budget, and you have to work within that. But you kind of get involved and wrapped up in the piece. So sometimes you just put more time into it, just for yourself. So sometimes you don't make money, but you get a nice promo piece.
Yeah.
I figured it out, the number of hours that I put into a picture book and then the pieces of art and everything. I'm earning about 3 cents an hour.
That's like anybody in the arts, whether they're actors or writers. But this is intellectual property you're creating, so we presume that you're creating value as you go along, and it accumulates and it accrues if you get enough publicity, I guess, and if people start to find out about what it is you're doing.
It's all in the royalties, Mark.
Royalties, okay, all right. Is that what they're called these days? Everything feels different now. Virginia's saying, great tip on the hollow arrow. Russ, was that those were your images for tonight? Do you have a cover of your book? Where's Faraway Friends? Show us.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I have to run and grab a copy. I don't have anything right.
Oh, okay. If you had a digital version on your computer, we could see the cover of that. Sorry.
That's okay.
We're gonna.
Oh, here it is. So yeah, here's the cover of Faraway Friends.
On your website, you've got some inside scenes of it. The illustrations look absolutely gorgeous. And
thank you. And then here's the book that I did in Illustrator, Major Manners, Night Night Soldier. You see that okay?
Look at all those award stickers. Holy cow! What are some of those awards on there? It's like
5 of them.
They're like medals.
Well, you can buy these on eBay. It makes a great.
We're talking about accruing value for your intellectual property. Good idea. No, seriously, what were some of the? What was one of the stickers on there? Was there an Illustrator sticker, or were they all for the writer?
There was a winner for Benjamin Franklin Award for Best Illustration, U.S. Best Book Award finalist, and there were. Wow!
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Those things are worth their weight in gold. Virginia is asking, does the Cintiq work with 10.10 Yosemite on a Mac? Now, you'll pardon my ignorance, Virginia. I don't know.
It should work fine. It's all about the driver. So if you update the drivers for your Cintiq, you should be fine.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thanks, Russ. Wonderful, wonderful inside look. Very privileged glimpse into the process. Wendy?
Hi.
The spotlight's on you.
Oh no, I'm like at a loss coming after these two. They're so amazing.
They're wonderful. Yeah, but you are too.
I went in a different direction, and I actually put together a slideshow showing my piece from start to finish.
Super. That's great.
Awesome.
Process.
So, I just finished this piece, Little Red Riding Hood, last month, and I'm gonna show you how I did it from beginning to end. And First off, I start off with thumbnails in pencil and marker. I'd have to say that these thumbnails that you're seeing here, they're probably about the size of a large postage stamp, and I just draw and draw and draw and draw until I get something that hits the mark.
Hey, Wendy,
Yeah.
the slides on my screen are coming out fuzzy, and and it's not doing justice to your work. I'm wondering, can you convert that into a PDF real fast? There should be a way, and I bet it will read a whole lot clearer. Then we can just look at it as a document, because somehow PowerPoint is just fuzzing out. Are you guys seeing that too? Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to show you off to best advantage. I wish I had caught that earlier. There must be a way to turn that into a PDF on the fly here. We'll ask Russ to play some banjo songs, some Foggy Mountain Boys.
Well,
while Wendy works that out.
is Janie ready? Is she ready to sing? 'Cause she
And
says,
Janie's going to
flap
say,
my wings. I'll flap
flap your wings. Janie, how did the
girl.
chicken girl? How did that become your nom de plume?
I just like chickens, and people started calling me Chicken Girl. And I also had a little chicken clock alarm when I was young, so I think it was a subliminal message. But yeah, stuck since.
It stuck.
All
Carrie.
right, I have a PDF, I think.
Okay, Carrie was saying that she saw the slides just fine, but Virginia said it was really fuzzy. So
I put it into a PDF.
okay.
So how are we doing?
That is much clearer for me.
All right, so
Much better.
here are 4 of my thumbnail rough ideas that I did. I think I probably did a dozen and crossed out most of them because I just wasn't happy with them.
Okay.
So then, it's like these are the ones I decided were the best out of the bunch, and I ended up picking, I thought it was number 4, it's actually number 2. You see the white girl with the black wolf?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I picked that one, and I draw my pencil sketches in layers. So we have the middle ground, the background, and the foreground. And these are what I call my tight pencils, but once I take them into Illustrator, I redraw them again, and you can see from my drawing the pencil sketches to here how much it's changed. So,
Wow.
I draw my inking, as I call it inking. I draw my art is very line heavy, as it's like the opposite of Russ's. Everything is lines.
Yes.
And I draw my lines using the pen tool, the brush tool, and the blob tools. And in this one, I kept my value map so that, it's like I was working with the value map the whole time. And I start with layers. I start with 3 layers, the background, the foreground, and the middle ground, and I add layers as I go. And I add details as I go. And here's more close-up. Added details to the mouth and to the basket and the bread and her skirt, and there's like a little fringe on her cape. Once I've finished the inking, I start laying in flat local colors. And for this particular piece, I used a limited palette so that it was all browns except for the cape and her hair. That made the cape really stand out because that's what I wanted to be like the focal point of the image. And once I had the flat color in, I started adding my texturing. If you can look at the background, you see there's lots of details going on in there. So it adds a lot of depth almost immediately, even though it's just one layer in there in the file. And once I was finished with the background, I started moving on into her features and her skin and everything. And if you could see in the first image, her hand is out flat, and I thought it looked like she was waving, and I wasn't happy with it, so I went in and I redrew a new hand. Things like that happen all throughout my process. And you can see also in the foreground, I started adding shading and leaves and stuff. And there's more leaves than there were when I started with my sketch. And I keep going, and I'm adding more details into red because she's the main character and the focus of the image, and that's where I want to keep most of my details and most of what the interest will be is in her. There's a lot of interest in the background because of all of the texturing and everything, but it's kind of monochromatic because of the color. I keep adding more details as I'm going, and you can see I started adding details to the cape here, and I'm figuring out how the light's gonna dapple from the leaves and everything, so it's on in the first 2 and it's off in the second 2 because that's another layer. I think I ended up with this file had 23 layers. And, well, this won't work because it's the PDF, but it was a little speed paint.
Oh, You know what? We'll make a separate video of that, you and I, Wendy, and we'll add that to the.
It's up on my YouTube channel, so.
Oh, good. I'll just grab it. Okay.
Yeah, they can see it.
Yeah.
Here I'm working on the lighting coming through down through the trees. You can see there's kind of shading going on in there.
How beautiful.
And this is a copy of my outlines, and I haven't finished drawing everything. My files tend to get really, really, really big because I'm drawing in a painterly style, and I have shading and all kinds of things going on. It makes my Illustrator run kind of slow, and I have to worry about saving because it takes, it's like when I'm getting to this point of the image, I can hit save and go and make myself a cup of tea and come back and start drinking the tea before the file has saved.
It's like waiting for your watercolor passage.
Well, I paint normally in watercolor when I'm doing traditional work, so I think it's the same thing that Janie did. It's like I brought my watercolor technique into Illustrator.
Yeah, stunning.
And here we can see I worked out detailing on the skirt and onto the pants and into the boots, and I added some more foliage into the foreground, and I painted the bottle of wine, and I painted the bread, and I painted the vest, and it's like there's all kinds of things going on in here.
It's all pointing toward impact and suspense.
So at this
very
point,
narrative.
I just have the foreground and the wolf to do, and it's not working. I mean, she's looking at the wolf, but what the wolf was like looking off and to the left. So I went back to the internet and did more research, and I redrew the wolf. And here's a close-up of the wolf. You can see there's a lot of detail in that wolf, but because it's all really close in values, it's not taking away from all the detailing in red. At this point, the image is done. And I think the file was 75 megabytes when I was done. Wow. And I think if I had done a similar thing in Photoshop, it would have been closer to 200 or 300 megabytes. Even though it takes a really long time for Illustrator to save, my files are smaller. Plus, I can blow this up to any size that I want and not lose any kind of detailing or anything. It stays nice and crisp, and I can make it any size I want. And it's like I'm really happy with this piece. It took me probably 100 to 150 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Here's some other pieces that I've done. The raccoons are the piece that I did when I was teaching the class with Mark. That was like 2 years ago. I did how to learn how to use Illustrator from the base roots. Mm-hmm. And I did a simpler piece, and I taught everybody how to do what I did with those raccoons. The piece in the middle, I was trying to emulate my watercolors more than I had in the red piece, and I like watercolor because of the happy accidents, and you can't have a happy accident on a computer because you have to tell it what to do.
You can try to pretend you're having a happy accident. Right?
Actually, there are cooler and cooler brushes out in the internet world now that you can get that actually emulate watercolor better. But since I'm still in CS5, I can't use a lot of it for the cloud.
Interesting that you and Russ are still on CS5. Oh, and Janie too, right?
CS5.
Yeah. Huh.
And the last piece is a piece I'm doing in a series of elements. So I have water, fire, earth, air, and wood. It's Tristan and Isolde. And it's like I did a companion piece to this. This one is called the Ace of Wands. I did a companion piece. It's called the Ace of Swords, but I colored that one in Photoshop.
Mm.
I mean, it's like I switch between Illustrator, Photoshop, and watercolor, just depending on what mood I'm in and what I'm doing. Kind of hard at this point to tell which piece is which, because I think my style is pretty consistent from traditional to Illustrator to Photoshop. And if you wanna wait while I open up the speed paint, I can pull that up.
Yeah, let's see if we can broadcast that. And let me look at the questions. Virginia has Illustrator 6. Virginia says, I like how you take your watercolor traditional techniques into Illustrator and how crisp it stays as you enlarge it. And Virginia also says, Janie, that she loves the chicken attitude, Janie.
Oh,
Jay Palan says, there's no quick way to go to PDF. Leave her alone, she said. So that's pretty fun. We're seeing it. Good. She's painting in all the patterns here. Do you want to narrate it? Can you narrate it while you show it to us?
Well, yeah. Actually, I'm just working on the detailing on the cape right now, and I'm using the pen tool. This is 60 times speed. So basically, what you're seeing is an hour's worth of work, and I'm using the blend tool. I'm using the shape tool. I'm also making compound paths. And as I'm drawing, I'm also making corrections to other layers that have come before that aren't quite perfect. Here I'm adding in shading, which is what looks like my watercolor technique. And I'm drawing shapes, and I'm using the, what is it called? It's the shape merge tool, I guess it is. I don't even remember the name of the tools at this point. I just used them. Mm-hmm. So that was an hour's worth of work.
Made all those drapery folds come alive for us. Mm-hmm. Stunning. Now, isn't there a Little Red Riding Hood competition with Tommy DePaolo?
Yeah, it was the. I think everybody had to have it in by December 1st, and he's judging them now. Deandra May has the unofficial blog of the entries. So after the winners are announced, you can go and see all of the entries there.
It's wonderful to watch what people do for the assignments that Tommy gives them every year. Yeah, and Wendy, you did a gorgeous one year of Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher in the cave. Do you remember? Yeah. And that was just one of my favorite all-time pieces I've ever seen online. It was a black and white piece, or grayscale piece. But let's see, Virginia's asking, are you using the gradient tool in the folds?
No, I'm using shape blending. The gradient tool wouldn't give me enough control over where I wanted the shading to be. Some people can use, there's something called a mask blend, and I've tried it, but I don't like the way it works. So I just, I've been using Illustrator almost as long as Russ. I think I started in 1989, not 1988.
Wow.
But when I started using it, there were no layers. There wasn't any blending tools or anything like that. Everything was in shape, and I drew with a mouse.
Yep.
And my first Adobe Illustrator illustrations were drawing the instruction manuals for Black & Decker products. So you've probably seen my art at some point if you've ever seen a Black & Decker product.
When that was done in Illustrator, did you say?
Yeah, in the 90s.
In the 90s. Holy cow. How did you teach yourself Illustrator? How did they weren't teaching you?
I got handed the program and said, the client wants to see something in 2 days. Here. Yeah. That's how I learned Photoshop. That's how I learned Quark. That's how I learned pretty much everything that I've learned.
Well, I am going to segue over here to my screen and just for a second to tell you about our sponsor for tonight's program. We have to have a sponsor because we have to make this worth our while to give you a program like this. And so our sponsor tonight actually is Wendy's course, Vector Your Kids Book Art. And I'm going to share my screen right now and just show it to you very briefly. We're not going to, I think you've seen a lot tonight, and we don't need to belabor the value of having an instructor who's been through all this walk you through the program and save you some time learning it. I'm going to give you a real quick look. Am I sharing my screen now,
Yes.
guys? Okay. All right. Well, so this is just a real quick peek into the course itself. It's Wendy taught it live to a gang of us a couple years ago. Like she said, she broke it down into the simplest components and showed us how to use all the tools that she uses. And she gave us an assignment, and she critiqued our work every time. We caught it on video. We interacted with her in live classes. She broke it all down very simply, and she ended up teaching us, she said, everything she knows about Illustrator she imparted to us. And so we have the course here on 33% off special New Year's holiday season sale. At the very end of the course, if you turned in your homework and Wendy was satisfied with it, she bestowed upon the graduates this raccoon badge of honor. And she's still offering the badge. It's like a medal. It's like one of those medals on Russ's books. But she's got to check off that you, in fact, did complete your assignments and that you were worthy of putting this seal on your blog or your website or your book jacket. Since nobody,
I don't think so.
And so that is what she will still give you if you complete the course. I'm going to put the link to the course up, and then the code that you'll want to use to get your 33% off. Your discount code is MyRaccoonBadge, and this will be good through the end of the year. And so that is our commercial from our sponsor for the course.
It's 9 o'clock.
Oh, somebody has an alarm clock. To briefly tell you what Wendy is covering in the course: creating and working with groups and palettes, laying in flat color, modeling characters and forms in the light by creating blends and gradients, and preparing your final art for print. The final for the class was doing a little promotional postcard that Wendy walked us through step by step, and those that finished had a little promotional mailer that certified them as being competent in Adobe Illustrator, at least in their own minds. And then if Wendy liked it, she gave you your raccoon badge. Now that you've seen all the effort that goes, let me see, stop screen sharing. Now that we've thoroughly intimidated you, showing you the work of these three incredibly superb illustrators and talented illustrators, you can learn these tools too. I'd kind of like to hear from all three of you why you think it might be a good idea, however you learn it, to learn Adobe Illustrator and have that skill set in your tool bag. Let's start with Janie. Any thoughts on that, Janie?
Oh, wow. Because I think Adobe Illustrator can be really intimidating, but I promise you, once it clicks with you, it's an amazing program. I think a lot of people, they always talk to me about it, and they're like, do you use the pen tool? I think there's something that clicks that needs to be clicked, and then once you click, it's going to be amazing. And I've been using this program really since 2000, and
wow.
I'm not switching anytime soon. I'm really comfortable with it. I draw right on top of the program. I don't even hand sketch anymore.
Wow. Wow. You are
thing.
That comfortable with it. Art through clicking. And Wendy's got a phrase too that I've heard her use before. She says, you're painting with shapes, which is a whole interesting new way of thinking about painting. Like Janie was actually giving us like fabric swatches, and that's how you fill up your canvas with textures, colors, and values. Russ, what are your thoughts about Adobe Illustrator of all the other tools?
I think it just makes you a well-rounded illustrator with all the tools at your disposal. You can lay out your own promo pieces using Illustrator. You can work on your own logos. You can play around with type. Plus, you can use it to create illustrations. So I just think it's just another tool in your arsenal and at your disposal. So
one more tool. Okay, and you like to use all the tools.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, can you combine work that's been done? This is a naive question, with Photoshop and Illustrator, and put them all together?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I'll do a piece in Illustrator and I'll save it in the layers, and then I'll import it in Photoshop and then add some features in Photoshop. Like you can blur things, maybe do a little painterly thing over top so it doesn't look so hard edge. So yeah, you can combine all the software.
Oh, okay, great. You know, also Bob Ostrom this morning in our little interview, he showed some work, and he was extolling the virtues of Illustrator from the point of view of a graphic designer, and he loves what you can do with type in Adobe Illustrator. It's his favorite digital tool for design and layout, and he said it's an indispensable tool for a graphic designer. That was his take on why an illustrator might want to get real conversant with this software. Wendy, what would you say about Illustrator? Why is it important for? And I know you use many tools as well.
I use as many tools as I humanly can.
Yeah.
I mean, as you could see from my demonstration, that I go between hand pencil drawing and going into Photoshop to scan and into Illustrator to draw and paint. I can also create textures in Photoshop and import them into Illustrator and use the live trace tool to make my textures. That's how I got the textures in the trees in the background. It adds a amount of randomness to it that drawing all those little shapes wouldn't have. And you know, I've tried Manga Studio, I've tried Mischief, I've tried several other programs that handle like a vector program, but I always go back to Illustrator. I think, you know, I started as a graphic designer, and my introduction to Illustrator was in creating logos and working with type and doing that sort of a thing. Some of the earliest illustrations that I did that weren't just line work was actually doing blowouts of fire alarm things. You know, the little smoke detectors. You know, I drew a breakout of what was inside the smoke detectors for a brochure for a company. I was so proud of that. I went back to look at it for, you know, to see, and it's like, it's so simplistic compared to what I've been doing with Illustrator now.
Yes, we should mention Wendy's Patreon page. If you subscribe for a nominal bit a month on her Patreon page, you can watch her do works in progress, and she, you know, we're going to put that link up, and it's sort of a hard thing to explain, but it's kind of like Kickstarter, but not really. You're kind of just
it's a monthly subscription to crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding in a small scale.
You can subscribe for $1 a month.
Yeah.
And you know, you get the joy of supporting me, or you can subscribe for a larger amount and get art at the end of the month. You know, when I finished a piece, and I finished Little Red Riding Hood with my Patreon account, and Mark's going to be getting a piece.
Yay! Because I'm a Patreon supporter of Wendy's and proud to be one. I think it's a wonderful alternative model for artists.
You know, so you decide how much you can afford on a monthly basis, and you can stop supporting me anytime. The higher patronages get more stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of a vote of confidence that we're giving the artists, and more artists, I think, you're going to find starting to use something like Patreon to build a fan base and followers, and it's a great way of communicating with your fans and your clients. Virginia says, I have trouble with the live trace. Just keep practicing. We got some questions coming in here.
Okay, the live trace is not something that you can use to get an exact trace. It won't work that way. Like I said, you know, it's like I use the live trace to create textures in my backgrounds. So.
She says, that's great, Wendy. I'll visit your page for sure. And Annie was commenting on Virginia's question. Live trace is a tricky one. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the whole drawing. I'm not sure why either. And I feel that's why I have to draw digitally over my sketch.
Well, if you click on the arrow next to the live trace, it'll bring down a menu, and you can tell it how intense to be.
Okay.
So, you know, it's normally just there for doing simple things, but there is an option to do a high resolution photo live trace, which will look almost like a piece of art itself.
Yeah, just make sure your scan is high res. If you use a low res JPEG, your live trace is going to look crappy. So
import at 300 dpi or above.
yeah, if I'm using live trace, I use 600 DPI.
600 DPI. Okay. Neat. Jay Paland is saying, does your body complain being at the computer all day?
Well, you heard my little alarm telling me that it was the top of the hour. That's
it's time for us to
get
go.
up,
Yeah.
get up and move for 15 minutes.
You guys have all been sitting down for over an hour now after being probably at the computer all day long. So this has been just a real treat, and so much more than I think any of us bargained for. Just so special seeing your work close up and hearing you talk about it. If you guys have more questions for these wonderful artists, put them on the wall here, and maybe we can talk them into visiting the wall tomorrow and answering any hanging questions. In the meantime, we're going to put up their contact information and their websites so that you can go visit for yourselves and take a look at their site, see what they're offering. Get in line for their books coming out or books that are already out. And Janie and Russ.
Russ, you should mention Kidlit Art.
Yeah, Kidlit Art.
Yeah, Thursday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Well, we have a Kidlit Art chat for an hour, and we have different topics that we usually post the day before. So if you want to learn things about Kidlit Artist, stop by. It's on Twitter.
Hashtag Kidlit Art, and then you got the Picture Book Dummy Challenge coming up. When Wendy was a founder of Kidlit Art, one of the co-founders, and I believe they started the Picture Book Dummy Challenge. But you're going to do it again this year, aren't you?
Yeah, we're at the tail end of the writing challenge right now.
Yeah.
So this gives more people time to really write their stories and develop that before we go into the dummy and start doing the artwork, which will start probably late January, early February.
It's a free program. It's a wonderful educational resource. Unbelievable, really, what they've got. And it's all kind of archived over at Kidlit Art blog.
And Kidlit Art is going to be 6 years old in January.
Wow. We got some thank yous coming into the page. Thank you very much. Very helpful, says Ms. Morrison. Yeah, Virginia says, yes, Wendy, that is a good thing to have an alarm clock to get up and move around. And Charlene says, thanks again. So let's all get up and move around. We'll say good night. And thanks again, illustrators, for making this such a wonderful presentation. It was so much fun. The replay will be up on this page for a few more, we'll leave it up for a few weeks for you guys to see and check it out. We covered a lot of ground in an hour. We really did. And don't forget to check out Wendy's course and the promotion there. I'll put that link up as well. It's a wonderful course. She really makes it simple for us. She just shows us all the tools she's using, and then it's up to us to go take that information and practice with it and make it our own, right? So Janie, thank you so much, and Russ, thanks. Wendy, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.